Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi. Now, a year ago I filmed a video about trying to remove some of the aging and yellowing that you get on these vintage G.I. Joe and Action Man rubber hands. It's something that you see all the time. These hands tend to age and go a bit more of a yellowy orange colour, and the rubber gets fairly brittle. And I'd seen a few people talking about dropping these into some everyday household bleach, and that would restore the colour to them. But as it was quite a harsh chemical to use, I wanted to see what would happen to that over a year. So let's check out the original video I filmed, and then we can have a look at how the hands look today. Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi. Now today we're going to take a look at Action Man's hands. In front of me you can see a few different versions of the gripping hands that are common with vintage power toy Action Mans, and over the years they tend to sort of degrade and change colour. So here what we have is this is a 40th anniversary set of hands, so this is a sort of modern reproduction. This guy here on the right, now these hands are original gripping hands and they don't look too bad to me. They're a little bit dirty, but the sort of colour of them is still pretty reasonable, and they've still got a bit of flex to them. But more often than not, when you look at these vintage Action Mans, they look like this guy at the back, where they have aged quite badly. They've gone a very sort of tanned colour and are starting to go brittle. And now I've seen a few people on various forums talk about sort of taking the staining out of these hands, and we're going to have a go at that today and see how well it works and see how the hands come out at the end. So let's take a look at some of the hands I'm going to do this process on. So here we have a few hands that I've taken off Action Men as I've been restoring them over the years, and these are in various sort of conditions. I actually have a bag of sort of broken and sort of damaged hands that I tend to keep just because I don't like to throw them away, and at some point I think they may come in useful, but mostly they are like this. There are sort of two types of sort of degradation of these hands that I find. One is this one, where they go absolutely rock solid, so this has lost all of the flexibility and gone a sort of a slightly sort of darker brown colour. And then you get this version where the rubber is still fairly sort of springy, but again it's lost the sort of the nice flesh tone colour. If I bring in let me bring in this guy, because this guy has one quite nice hand. You can see that's the colour that the hand should be, and this one's gone quite sort of, it's almost suntanned, but still has some of the flexibility that you would expect in this rubber. But obviously as well, you can see the fingers are sort of broken off. So we're going to use these as our sort of little test sort of hands, because if something goes wrong with these, I'm not too worried. Now the process I'm going to use is something I've seen discussed on a few forums, and it's not something I've tried before because really it sounds a little bit harsh to me. So what I want to do is use the process on these hands, and then I'm going to leave them for an entire year, and we'll come back to them in a year's time and have a look and see how they look and see if something has happened to them, or if they're still sort of in a relatively good condition. Because the idea is you take these hands and you put them in some bleach. Now this is just normal sort of household bleach that I've picked up down at well, this came from Morrison's, and this is, I think on the back it says it's about it's 5% bleach, so most of it is just sort of other added ingredients. But so it's not a massively strong bleach, but this is the sort of stuff that you would put down your toilet and sort of wipe surfaces with. It's still not a good idea to get it onto your hands, so I'm going to just drop some of it into this tub, and I will drop my hands into that, and we're going to leave them for about an hour. Now I have seen this work, and it does sort of take off this sort of old stained colour, but what I worry about is that this actually will damage the plastic or the rubber sort of for future sort of time. So really the only way to do this is to put some of these in this stuff, leave it for an hour, see what happens to it. We can do a sort of comparison, and then I'll come back to this in a year's time and we'll see how the hands look. Now obviously these are hands that I would have otherwise thrown away, so I don't really mind if things go wrong with them, and they're an ideal test. So we've got two hands that look roughly the same. I'm going to keep one out as a sort of guide so we can see and compare the two. This is the rubbery type of hands, and then this is the one that's absolutely solid plastic. So I've got a plastic pot here. I'm going to drop one of the rubbery hands in and one of the harder solid hands, and I'm going to pour in enough bleach to cover these hands. Like so, and then I'm going to leave that for an hour, and apparently it's an hour's time is all you need, and we'll come back to it. Obviously I'm not going to touch this with my hands. I'm going to very carefully clean these before I bring these back on camera, so if you're going to try this yourself, wear gloves and don't touch the bleach. So let's leave this for an hour and we'll see what happens. It's now been about an hour, and you can see that there is some change to the colour of the hands in there. So I'm going to take these out and give them a thorough wash just in some warm soapy water to get all of the bleach off, and then I'll bring them back up here and we can compare them to this hand that I didn't stick in the bleach, and we'll see how they look. And here are the hands now that they've been washed and dried. So you can see that there is quite a big difference between the two hands. This one on the left was how it was originally, and this is after an hour in the bleach. And you can see that it's certainly gone back to a much more of a flesh colour sort of finish to the hand, and it still feels quite rubbery. There's nothing sort of really changed in the sort of structure of the rubber there. If we go to the one that was the hand that was absolutely solid plastic, that is still really solid, and you can see that it's certainly changed colour. I think I have another one of the hands there on the side. You can see it's quite sort of dark, so it's certainly changed colour, but it's still just as solid. And actually the inside of this sort of plastic is starting to go a little bit sort of crumbly. So this hand was really far gone anyway, and I wouldn't recommend doing anything to those. But this one, it certainly looks like it's made quite a big change. Now, I'm not going to say that everyone should do this. I'm actually going to leave these now for an entire year, and I'll come back to this in a separate video in a year's time, and we'll see what has happened to this hand, because I have a feeling bleach is a fairly hard sort of chemical, and is going to do sort of quite a lot of nasty things to the plastic, and I do worry that this is actually going to sort of damage the plastic even more. Although these are rough hands anyway, I just worry that it's sort of going to make them even worse and get even sort of worse over time. So really, I'm going to leave this and come back to it in a year. I did do one other hand while I was doing this, which is this one here, and you can see this still has a little bit of sort of yellow tinging to it, and the plastic on this one has actually gone, if I can get the camera to focus, it's all started to crack. So that's why I'm going to say I don't recommend at the moment everyone having a go at this, but I certainly think it's worth looking into, and in a year's time we'll come back to this and see if these hands have survived or what has happened to them, because they're already perishing as it is, but this may make the process sort of speed up even more. So for the moment you can see it has made quite a difference, but the long-term damage is really what I'm interested in this video. So let's come back to this in a year's time and we'll see how these hands look, whether they're still as supple and sort of rubbery as they are at the moment, or whether something else has happened to them. Maybe they're going to end up a bit more sort of cracked like this one. So it's going to be a case of time will tell. So let's come back and we'll see what happens. And these are those exact same hands 1 year later. So this was the control hand. This was one I did nothing to, and this is what these hands looked like before I'd put them into the bleach. So you can see this is quite shiny and it's got a very sort of yellowy colour. These two in the middle were the ones that went in the bleach, and you can see here that the plastic looks exactly the same as it did 1 year ago. There's still some cracking on the surface, but it's quite supple. You can actually sort of bend it and squidge it, so it's got a lot of give to it, and it's still reasonably nice colour. I think it has got a little bit sort of yellow again, but overall it certainly doesn't look sort of quite as bad as that one there, which was the one that we didn't do. And we also have the right hand here. Now this has a loose finger, that's the only thing that was left on it, and it's about to fall off, but it was like that when I put it into the bleach. And you can again see that the colour of this one is not looking too bad. The rubber is still very supple. I would say it has got a little bit yellow again, but not too bad, and nowhere near how it was originally. So those two look like they are in pretty good condition after 1 year since having the treatment of everyday household bleach. I think overall I would say that's a pretty good sort of result, and I'm going to try this again on some of my other figures now that I know it's not going to cause sort of a long-term bit of damage to them. And then we have this hand, which was the one that was absolutely solid. This again, nothing has changed on it. It still looks exactly the same, and it still kept the colour that the bleach sort of removed from it. So I think that's pretty good as well. This really, there is not a lot you can do to that one because it's gone absolutely solid, but it was worth having a little test on it. So there you go. That is what these hands look like after 1 year since having the bleaching treatment. I have to say they look pretty reasonable. I think they have gone a little bit yellow again, but they are still quite supple and still got you know, a lot of sort of squidginess to them. So I think overall the process has been a success, and I would say it's probably acceptable for people to do this to their own figures, but it really is up to you. You may want to just leave it and get some of the 40th anniversary replacement hands, which is generally what I do on these figures, just swap the hands out for newer ones. But as you can see, the process has worked pretty well, and a year on they're still looking good. So I hope this video has been of interest to you, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.